All right, welcome back to another day of the daily live. So, today I want to talk about process improvement because if you are going to be effective in your business and you are going to scale and you're going to grow, you have to get good at improving your processes. Because if you are not able to improve your processes, what you're going to run into is you're going to run into capacity issues, or you're going to run into quality issues, or you're going to run into a mix of both. And that is not going to be good for your business. So, you want to make sure that you have a way of really looking at your process and how do we improve it. Now, I know that's probably a buzzword that a lot of people hear. So I prefer to break things down practically. Process improvement literally is looking at what is your process and how do we make it better? How do we make it more effective? How do we make it faster? How do we identify the areas where we have weaknesses? And how do we close those gaps or fix those weaknesses? Now, this becomes a challenge for a lot of people because often what I find is that business owners, including myself, or just leaders in different businesses, what they tend to really focus on is the output of an individual activity instead of focusing on let me create the process and then the process will actually produce the output. Now, the what that really means is, let's say if our goal is to create a bunch of content that can go up in the marketing process. If we are so focused on creating the individual pieces of content, but we're not taking a step back and looking at what is the overall process, and let's just make sure we have steps in the process that allow us to move more quickly, that allow us to be more effective and more efficient. If we're not having that perspective, what we're going to realize is we're not going to have enough capacity to be able to produce the type of content that is necessary for our business to grow. For example, I tell a lot of people like we create about maybe 20 to 30 pieces of content, a week, every single week across our different content that we're doing across the different platforms that we're doing. And a lot of people are like, how do you have that much time to create that much? And a lot of it is because we focus less on trying to create the content. We focus more on the process that we have. And we really worked hard on nailing the process down. And when we work through that process, what we noticed is there were some things that we could fix, some things that we can change that allowed us to move faster. And we also noticed that as we started to increase, because we originally started off creating maybe like 1 to 2 pieces of content a week. And then we said, all right, what if we do more? And we noticed there started to be more mistakes. And that's where it dawned on us like, we need to go back to the basics of how do we fix the process. So here's a couple of steps that you want to go through. Is the first thing you want to do is you want to actually just write out what is the current process. And that's a step that a lot of people tend to skip because it's very difficult for you to improve something if you don't know what the actual process is. Like if you're not sure what you're supposed to be improving, it's going to be very difficult for you to come up with a better process. So you need to first document what is the current process and then go through and ask yourself, all right, where are the weaknesses in this process? And once you identify those weaknesses, start asking yourself, is there a different way that we can do this that will eliminate some of these weaknesses? And then you want to ask yourself, are there any tools or resources that we can use that will help make this faster? And that will also help eliminate some of those weaknesses or actually improve the output. So, to give you a very clear example, I'm going to share what we did for a new concept we're doing called the law firm success story. So, this is a new podcast format that we're doing where I interview law firm owners and bring them on. They talk about their success story, what are they doing, how they did it, and it's something that becomes very encouraging for other people to hear about the success stories because you'll find a lot of motivation in hearing how someone else succeeded because it could spark ideas to help you become successful in your own business or in whatever it is that you're doing or the goals you're working towards. So is a project that we're really passionate about. We really enjoy doing it because it's helping so many different lawyers understand, like, hey, there isn't just one way to be successful in my firm, or hey, I can do this. Other people were able to figure out this, or other people were able to figure out how to build the type of firm that they really enjoy and they want. And so it became very helpful to continue sharing this, concept with so many people. Now, in the process of sharing this super popular concept or this super popular podcast, then you got to figure out, okay, how are we going to make sure that we can consistently get these episodes done, get them through the editing process, and get them shared? So the way that we used to do it, when we first wrote down our process, because we were running into issues and we were like, all right, this process is it was pretty painful. And as you can see, there are about 18 steps in this process. And as you can also see, it's like we assign, all right, who's going to do what in the process. And one of the things you notice is there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of handoffs. And what we noticed is every handoff, there was creating more issues because either messages were being missed, or emails weren't being shared, or a Slack message wasn't shared. And we noticed that, like, this approach became very, very cumbersome, because also within this is we still had all the other stuff that we were trying to do. So one of the things that we did is we met as a team and we actually wrote out the process, and we said, hey, here is what each person is doing in this process. That allowed all of us to understand what the big picture looked like. And then we went through that steps and said, okay, all right, where are the biggest weaknesses? One of the first weaknesses we noticed is there are too many handoffs in this process. We needed to eliminate some of the handoffs. And then we also noticed is that, hey, what are the opportunities or the tools that we can use to try to streamline some of this? And then we went on a search and said, okay, all right, how do we find a tool that can help eliminate some of these steps? And we found some very good tools to help us eliminate some of these steps and to consolidate things. And after going through this exercise of finding the weaknesses and then really challenging ourselves, how do we come up with resources and tools to make this better? We went from this 18-step process, which had quite a bit of errors that were coming through that we had to manually go back on the back end and fix. We went from this to now, this is what our new process looks like, which has less handoffs. So there's less back and forth. And we started using tools like StreamYard. We started using Calendly to book and schedule the meetings. And we also made sure we tweaked the questions we were asking when someone would book a meeting to be a guest on the show. Is we asked relevant questions up front. So we got everything that we needed, which eliminated some of the research we had to do on the back end. And then we started also using Descript, which Descript allowed us to be able to identify, all right, how do we shorten the process on being able to create clips, be able to create shorts, and to be able to create titles? And then also, we didn't need to keep paying for two other editing softwares that we were using before. Is we can consolidate it down to utilizing one software, and it was an online web-based editing. So everyone on the team could see it, which allowed us to eliminate, like I said, we went from 18 steps down to 9 steps and much less handoffs. And so that's an example of how we went through a process improvement. And as I said, the first thing we did is we wrote down what was the current process we were doing at the time. And then we asked ourselves, what are the weaknesses in this process? And then we said, okay, all right, what are tools or things that we can change in the process to make it more effective, but to still deliver the desired output that we want? And when we went through all of that process, what we noticed is that we had a lot of opportunity to make things better. Now, as you look at different things you're doing in your business, one of the questions I encourage you to ask yourself is, one is, have you written out your current process? After you write it out, ask yourself, what are the weaknesses in your current process? And then ask yourself, all right, what are tools or changes that we can make to the process to actually make our overall process better and to make a better outcome? Because when you're doing that, you will go through that journey of process improvement. And what you'll notice is similar to us. We were able to go from producing 2 pieces of content a week to producing anywhere from 20 to 30 pieces of content in a week. And there's more capacity that we have because we're going to be producing even more. So thanks for tuning in for today's daily challenge.